Leftist political alarm clock snooze button syndrome. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I have been noticing a trend amongst my left leaning and social justice believing friends on social media where they are complaining a lot about stress, mental fatigue, depression, and general paranoia when it comes to the political climate, which obviously isn't surprising coming from people who never dreamed Trump would be our president. Some have reported that they have had to unplug from social media or to stop reading news for periods of time, but of course this didn't cure their woes. Others have reported that they have had to go on antidepressants or back on antidepressants, and others just wish that they could go back to having Barack Obama as our president. I try to tell these people that there's a reason for all of this and that the media that they are collectively ingesting that shows up on their leftist echo chamber news feed on Facebook is very deliberately designed to make them paranoid and angry, and that there is independent alternative media on YouTube that they can check out, but almost unanimously they resent me and basically tell me to fuck off for saying so. In past videos, I have talked in depth about the fact that the media narrative presented to left-leaning people from sources like CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, The Guardian, feminist blogs, and the rest of the blogosphere like Salon and Vox is basically an alternate reality that is rather like a dream if you think about it. Most people on the left legitimately believed that women and girls are oppressed in the Western world, despite the fact that male suicide is 78% of all suicides in the West, and young men only compose around 40% of university enrollments. Most people on the left believed that Black Lives Matter was a culturally subversive movement that was fighting the system with tangible and achievable goals, despite the fact that it was a movement completely unopposed by federal government representatives like Obama himself, who praised the movement, and even the police force, who never seemed to mass arrest protesters shutting down highways. Most people on the left believe that we didn't have a dangerous, growing international terrorism problem when it came to Islam, despite a body count of thousands of people within just the past few years. A body count which people will blame on toxic masculinity, the West itself for angering the Islamists, or any other number of things to avoid examining the ideology closely for violent sentiments. Most people on the left believed that the economy had bounced back since crashing in 2007, despite the fact that most of them and everybody they knew were in debt and usually one paycheck away from being homeless. They thought that the economy was good because somebody told them that things were getting better, and there were vacant condos being built around them, so somebody must be moving into them, right? Even though nobody was. Even further, after believing all of these things, while many people on the left thought that we should elect Bernie Sanders because they wanted free stuff that they felt that they were being denied by way of rich Americans hoarding wealth inside our supposedly great economy, these same leftists were perfectly fine electing Hillary Clinton into office. Yes, they all knew she theoretically had flaws, and they might have even been able to name a few of them, such as the fact that she didn't support gay marriage until fairly recently, or that she called young black people super predators in the 90s. But overall, they felt that she was qualified and cared about stuff she cared about. Healthcare, that's what she cared about. And of course, she wasn't literally Hitler. However, all of this was a dream, of course. Feminism in the current year is all a lie. Men and boys in the West are both suffering socially by every tangible statistical metric available, as well as plainly, evidently suffering from systemic discrimination in family courts and on college campuses. This is all the exact opposite of what feminists were claiming. Black Lives Matter, which is actually a feminist organization anyway, was at best a somewhat well-meaning distraction from more tangible working class grievances like the Occupy Wall Street movement, designed to make it look like black feminist women were the ones who were going to save the black community. And at worst, BLM became, to many people, a black supremacist terrorist organization that wanted to topple the entire United States government. Islam is still massacring people basically every week because, according to radical jihadists, everybody who isn't practicing whatever distinct form of Islam that they think that they should be practicing is worthy of being collateral damage worth killing so that they can go hang with Allah in heaven. And of course, the economy is actually utter shit, not only in leftist urban meccas, but it's wreaking havoc on people in blue-collar areas. And considering Hillary Clinton never really even alluded to how she would reduce the cost of Obamacare for healthy working-class families, and she never even bothered to visit Wisconsin, for example, we can assume that she wasn't gonna do shit about the economy, at least anything particularly drastic. Many people, myself included, woke up to all of this long before the election was actually over, almost like waking up in a cold sweat in the night. Others, like my friend the Liberal Hammer on YouTube, will tell you that they woke up to all of this rather suddenly, kinda like an alarm clock in the morning. However, many people continue to hit the snooze button over and over and over, knowing damned well that the alarm has gone off, that they will have to get up, and that 10 more minutes of potential sleep is not really even worth trying for in most cases. And yet they hit that snooze button anyway. They hit the snooze alarm because last decade, during the Bush years, it was easy enough for leftists to just brush off the right wing as a bunch of hillbillies that were homophobic in red states who were voting against their best interests. These yokels clearly didn't understand that short-term tax breaks won't last with a president who was willing to jump headfirst into a war in Iraq, basically on a whim with no exit strategy. These Republican voters obviously seemed, at the time, to be voting against their own self-interests, a line that I repeated myself countless times because I had reason to believe it. Especially considering the fact that during the Bush administration, the Republican Party really was in bed with all of the big corporations that were demolishing the economies of working class cities with malls and Walmart outlets. However, when Donald Trump got elected, while many leftists repeated the same line about voting against their self-interests, it was hard to really say why. Hillary Clinton showed that she didn't care about right-wing areas. If not, she downright resented them. They were paying too much for Obamacare, and they could prove it, and these people could tell that the economy wasn't doing that well, and they knew that we were in debt to China by kind of a lot. A massive amount of people didn't really know whether or not Trump was going to be able to really solve anything, but they supported him anyway because at least he admitted that there was a problem and he didn't just blatantly lie about gender statistics and Islam. These people not only ended up winning an election that ended the dream of the Democratic Party's version of social justice, but they also refused to shut up and be intimidated by leftist extremism once Antifa showed up and started trying to scare them. Mainstream media began smearing Trump supporters as Nazis, and every week I see yet another blog article from a disillusioned leftist who decided to finally leave the left. And yet still, I see numerous people who always claimed to hate corporate media now defending CNN and the New York Times, apparently just out of spite for Trump after his relentless bashing of such outlets. People hit the snooze button every time they think that something is going to turn up in the quote-unquote Russia investigation. They hit the snooze button every time somebody tells them to watch the Red Pill documentary about men's rights activists, and they refuse to watch the supposedly misogynistic film made by a woman who was a feminist. These people hit the snooze button every time they say they want to move to Europe or to Canada, or that they're gonna vote for Bernie Sanders in 2020 if he runs. Please don't run, dude. But of course, eventually they'll have to get out of bed and wipe the crud out of their eyes in the shower. And by the time they do, they'll be glad that they aren't going to be any more late to work or school than they already are. That's all I have to say for this video. Be like these people and help me buy a new computer so that I can make better videos, and stay tuned.